You hear it every day. That steady, familiar voice narrating your life. It tells you to get out of bed. It judges your mistakes. It plans. It reminisces. It fantasizes. It sounds like you. It feels like you. But what if it isn't? What if the voice in your head, the one that sounds so much like yourself, isn't the true you at all? What if it's just a passenger, a side effect, a late-stage echo of decisions already made? Let's explore what the voice is, why it's there, and whether you can ever be sure that the speaker is you. Most people experience something called internal monologue, the voice you hear in your mind when you think in language. It's incredibly personal. You might not even realize it's there unless you stop to notice. And yet, it shapes almost every waking moment. In 2020, a viral debate broke out online when people learned that not everyone has one. Some people don't hear a voice in their head at all. They think in abstract images, feelings, or silent knowing. This raised an unsettling question. If not everyone hears their own inner narrator, where does it come from? Is it a product of language, a side effect of memory, or something else entirely? Neuroscientists believe the inner voice is tightly linked to the brain's default mode network, a system that activates when you're not focused on the outside world. This is the network behind mind-wandering, rumination, self-referential thought, and yes, that voice that reminds you how awkward your joke at lunch was. But the voice is more than just chatter. It's where the self lives. The philosopher René Descartes famously declared, "Cogito ergo sum." I think, therefore I am. But thinking isn't always conscious. So what is that I that experiences the thought? That question gets even stranger when you consider experiments in split-brain patients. In the 1960s, neuroscientist Roger Sperry studied people who'd undergone surgery to sever the corpus callosum, the bundle of fibers connecting the brain's two hemispheres. These patients were mostly normal, but under controlled experiments, they behaved in stunningly surreal ways. When an image was shown only to the right hemisphere, which doesn't control speech, the patient could not name what they saw, but their left hand, controlled by the right hemisphere, could draw the image. It's as if two minds were sharing the same skull. Even more startling, sometimes one hand would start to button a shirt and the other would unbutton it. What this suggests is radical, that the you in your head might be just one voice among many. That what we call consciousness is a patchwork, a story told by one hemisphere that pretends to speak for the whole. That brings us to philosopher and cognitive scientist Daniel Dennett, who proposed the multiple drafts model of consciousness. According to Dennett, there is no single you observing the world. Instead, your brain runs many processes in parallel, drafts of experience being edited and rewritten constantly. What we think of as the voice is not a central command. It's just the most coherent narrative the brain can come up with after the fact. So when you say, "I just decided to go left," your body may have already started turning before your voice explains it. Dennett argues that there's no Cartesian theater, no inner stage where the true self sits and watches experience unfold. There's just the story and the narrator. This idea echoes, oddly enough, in ancient myth. In 1976, psychologist Julian Jaynes published The Origin of Consciousness in the Breakdown of the Bicameral Mind. Jaynes suggested that early humans didn't experience thought the way we do now. Instead of having an inner voice they recognized as themselves, they heard instructions in the form of external commands, what they interpreted as the voices of gods. These hallucinated commands were processed in one hemisphere and heard by the other. Over time, as society changed and language evolved, this division broke down. The God voices became self-talk, and the inner monologue was born. It's a controversial theory, but one that makes a strange kind of sense. What if your inner voice is just a modern echo of those ancient voices? What if the voice you think of as yourself was once a stranger? And yet, the voice persists. So let's ask another question. If the voice isn't you, who's listening? This is where Eastern philosophy has long walked ahead of science. In many meditative traditions, particularly in Buddhism, the idea of a unified self is considered an illusion. Your thoughts are just thoughts, your emotions just weather, and the voice in your head? Just passing noise. The practice of mindfulness teaches you to observe the voice, not silence it, but recognize that you are not it. As the Indian sage Sri Ramana Maharshi asked, "Who am I?" The question isn't meant to be answered. It's meant to dissolve the assumption that there is an I to be found. Modern neuroscience backs this up. Studies of people on psychedelic substances, such as psilocybin or DMT, show that activity in the default mode network, the very system tied to the inner voice, sharply decreases. And yet these subjects report feeling more connected, more aware, more alive, not less. Some describe it as ego death, the dissolution of the voice. If consciousness survives without it, was it ever essential? But then we return to the mystery. If the voice isn't you, and the thoughts aren't you, and even your memories can be rewritten or fabricated by your own brain, what is you? The philosopher David Hume argued that the self is like a bundle of perceptions. No single, unchanging core, just a flow of impressions, like a river that pretends to be a stone. The voice in your head is the river's current. You might mistake it for the river itself, but it's just the motion, not the source. And here's the twist. The voice isn't inherently good or bad. It helps you plan. It helps you reflect. It tells jokes and solves problems. But it can also lie. It can sabotage you. It can trap you in loops of shame, regret, or fear. And because it sounds like you believe it. But ask yourself, if you can observe it, if you can argue with it, if you can change it, can it really be the whole of you? Let's run one final experiment. Right now, in this moment, try to catch the next thought before it appears. Don't think, just wait. Did you notice? The voice comes uninvited. It arrives on its own. It tells you what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you're supposed to want, but you didn't choose it. And yet, you're still here. Which means maybe the voice isn't who you are. Maybe you're the space it echoes through. Maybe you're the awareness that listens. The field where thoughts rise and fall like waves, without ever disturbing the ocean. So the next time you hear your inner voice talking, whether it's being helpful or cruel, curious or afraid, ask yourself, who's really speaking? And more importantly, who's listening?